And we are live. Welcome to Crypto Law TV. I'm John Deaton, the founder and your host. This week's War on Crypto quick update. On our weekly update, we got the big news: the CFTC files a case against CZ and Binance. And I'm going to do and say what I said at the very beginning of the Ripple case. The most responsible thing you can do is you wait and you read the answer of the complaint. Remember, a complaint is the prosecution, in this case, the CFTC, alleging certain things. And then we get to see the defendant's answer in response. And what I do as an experienced litigator and as someone who has filed complaints as a federal prosecutor, sometimes there's noise in the complaint that's meant to drive a certain narrative. And for example, in the CFTC complaint, they talk about terrorism funding. And there's language in emails about a joke is made about you can't buy an AK-47 with $600 and alleged activity or potential small funding of terrorist organization. None of that is actually necessary for the underlying charges. And none of that is necessary to prove what you're proving. So the question is it something that we're going to see from the Department of Justice in some kind of criminal action? Or is it noise? Remember, let's go back to the Ripple case. And when the Ripple case was filed, people were out there and they read it. And there was language in there that they used. I called it fraud-like language in a non-fraud complaint. And I warned people, listen, they're just trying to inflame people, right? Brad Garlinghouse said he was long XRP while he was selling it. Well, if you own 1 billion XRP and you sell some of it, you're still long. If Elon Musk, is he long Tesla, even though he sold a shitload of Tesla stock? You know, and all I'm saying is that if you're not alleging fraud, then why is this language in there? And it's meant to inflame people, or it's meant to impact the public. It's meant to impact potential jurors, or it is meant to create a narrative that as a government you want to create. So what is that narrative? Well, we see this language. We see a U.S. sitting senator actually filing as part of her re-election campaign an anti-crypto platform. And what are we going to hear? Something we're going to talk about here in a minute. The narrative of crypto is used for illicit purposes. It funds terrorism. Drug cartels use it. All of this. When we all know that the truth is not that. We all know that the FBI, the CIA, the National Safety, NSA basically have all come out and said that, well, you'd have to be a moron if you're going to use crypto on a distributed public blockchain ledger. We're going to catch you. We hope that you do it. The government just sold Bitcoin and will continue to sell Bitcoin from Silk Road. So that's all for a narrative. So I just caution people out there that to ignore that noise and wait until you see the actual facts, because it has a cascading impact. What did we see shortly after that complaint that just went down yesterday? I believe it was yesterday, where there's a rumor that Interpol has issued a warrant arrest for CZ. Normally, you don't publicize it, right? If there's a arrest warrant, you don't usually put someone on notice that has the means to hide, who has the means, billionaire, some think maybe one of the richest men in the world, who can avoid law enforcement. Normally that wouldn't be publicized. Now, I knew that when I saw that rumor. I was like, listen, this is probably bullshit. But you don't know. But what happened is, of course, people react. And someone did something, I don't know how it went down. I don't know the facts, but the point is you have to wait and you can't react, especially on Twitter. You see something and you panic and all of a sudden you want to take your money out. So I would love to know what the facts are of how much money from that rumor that hit social media how much money left Binance and was withdrawn within the first few hours of that. So, anyways, try to ignore all that. Sorry. Now, moving on to today. I said that I talk about that narrative. We saw some of that narrative play out. I was invited to testify, as many of you know, in Maine at the first digital public hearing of a state legislature involving digital assets. And the bill that was being proposed is fairly simple. It is a bill that is allowing financial institutions, certain private financial institutions, to custody crypto with 100% in reserves. So if they custody your one Bitcoin, they will always maintain that one Bitcoin. They won't sell it. They won't loan it, any of that, right? Sounds like a great thing in today's environment. And so the senator had invited me. It was only 3 minutes because they went over. There were a lot of people involved. But if you go to that hearing, it won't be my testimony that is interesting, to be honest with you, because you all know this stuff. It will be what a state legislature financial services committee looks like and who it's comprised of. And that you're going to be shocked at how out of tune regular non-crypto people are who make or are part of the legislative process in the states. And so the questions were like, oh my God, is this 2012? Is this 2014? I'll give you an example, right? So that you understand exactly what I'm talking about. The questions were, I hear that crypto, Bitcoin, and this other crypto stuff is used really by criminals. That's a question that you have to address, and you have to educate this person that they all said, the agencies, as I said you'd be a moron to do this, and that it's not, and that cash is still used. But that was a question. Question was, I don't understand how Bitcoin miners make money. And it makes no sense to me. And isn't it just the same kind of system we have, except now other people are collecting fees and they don't understand that. There was a question of the electricity use. I hear Bitcoin takes a whole lot of electricity and is ruining the environment. Those are the questions we had. Volatility. People were saying the questions from these people were, I don't get if I put my Bitcoin in a bank and they're going to hold it and it's worth, 10,000 now, how are they guaranteeing me my 10,000 if Bitcoin goes down to 5,000? Like, they literally have to be spoon fed how it works, that one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin and that it fluctuates. They have no idea of use cases. One of the questions was, I really don't worry about Bitcoin because I can't buy my coffee with Bitcoin. And until I can buy my coffee with Bitcoin, Bitcoin is no use to me. They have no idea that these cryptos serve utility on certain types of cases. They have no idea about XRP. They have no idea about cross-border payments and how, we can not pay the 9 and 15% of the MoneyGrams and all of that. And you can use XRP as none of that, right? It's more of those kind of questions. And so a lot of you are just going to be absolutely, absolutely shocked about that. I also talked about the narrative of, because everyone's going to go with this narrative. I hear they're all securities. We have to fight that narrative. And that's what I've been fighting for over 2 years now, that this is computer code. This is software code. That's all it is. It can be offered and packaged like any commodity or any asset in an unregistered securities, but that doesn't do it. But I can tell you the damage that Gensler is doing creating this narrative, the unconstitutional shortcut that the token itself is a security, Ethereum is a security. That's his claim. XRP is a security. Not that they're virtual currencies that can be sold or could have been sold in the past as a unregistered security, but that they themselves are securities. That narrative is taking a toll, and we have to go in and fight it. I explained to them about Operation, Choke Point 2.0. And I asked them to think about what's happening here, that if the government is successful, it will actually take the sovereign powers of the states away. And so this bill was mirroring the bill of like Custodial Bank in Wyoming, and hopefully they get Caitlin Long there and she can really educate them and these committee members. But what I learned sitting there is that we as an industry need to attack these state legislatures. I've been arguing for over 2 years that the battle is in the federal courts. And today, the light bulb went off that it's a multi-field battle. And yes, we have to fight in federal court. Grayscale versus the SEC, Ripple versus the SEC, Coinbase versus the SEC, Binance, all of them, retail holders filing cases, getting involved when we can. But we need to be going into the states and trying to get these states, especially states in the Northeast, who are allegedly supposed to be progressive. We got to find where we can get in the state legislature and try to get more bills like this. That's going to put more pressure on the government, and that's going to fight that narrative. So if we need to reach out in the states that we live, and I'm going to do it, I'm going to contact the Rhode Island state legislatures and say, we need a similar bill that just got proposed in Maine, that got proposed in Wyoming, and attack these state legislatures. I think that is an area that we're not fighting as effectively as we should be. So it's going to be a quick one today. I only got a couple more minutes, and that's just going to touch base. I just had an interview with Thinking Crypto Tony, and I know a lot of you tune in because you're waiting with bated breath and anxiety over the decision from Judge Torres. And I'm going to repeat what I've said before. If you look at her past history, we have an example of where she filed the Daubert motion and on experts, and then she filed her summary judgment within an hour later. That didn't happen, but that has happened. That's why I said back then it could be any moment. Then there was another case where she filed the Daubert motion and then she filed a summary judgment 2 weeks after. Well, the Daubert motion was filed on March 6th. So in 2 days, it will be 4 weeks. So that didn't happen. Now there's two more examples I've got for you. There was a case where she filed the Daubert motion and 30 days went by, and there was a case where she filed the Daubert motion and 60 days went by. So what I've said is that from the Daubert motion until 2 months after the Daubert motion, we can most likely expect a ruling. So that would put us, right? If it's 2 months, that would put us to May 6th, March 6th, April 6th, May 6th at the outside. But it's possible that May 6th will come around and it won't be decided. All we can do is give you, here's what she's done in the past. And if she follows that past, then we're getting a decision sometime between March 26th and May 26th. I'll be surprised if May 1st comes and we don't have a decision, but that's all I'll be, is surprised. And that doesn't mean anything other than that. Each day that passes, this decision gets bigger and bigger. So I just want you to think about those of you out there who are thinking about this. Why hasn't she ruled yet? What I doubt very seriously that Judge Torres has ever felt the pressure that she's feeling right now. Ripple is sending, hey, Judge, look what the judge in Voyager said. Look what the Judge Gorsuch at the Supreme Court said about fair notice. All of these things are happening after. She's getting more information. Look at the SEC's conduct. Look at Binance. Look at the CFTC. All of this stuff is happening in the background where you got guys like me saying the regulatory clarity is going to come from her. You've got the library decision. You don't think she's aware of all this? So this decision is as big of a decision that this judge has ever faced. Think about it. What other decision is as big as this decision when it comes to global trade and finance in modern history? I've said before that this case is the most significant non-fraud SEC enforcement action since 1946. So that kind of pressure, personally, I don't blame Judge Torres for being very careful of how she words this decision because A, if it goes against Ripple, she knows it's going up to a conservative court. And if it's for Ripple, she has to justify it and all those things. So just be patient. We're almost at the end. Everybody have a great night. See you next week.